Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I have a very special guest with us today. We have the one and only, I always say the one and only, but this time it is Greg Palast. And Greg Palast is coming today with a counter narrative. Who is Greg Palast? Greg Palast is that investigative reporter that has broken a whole lot of fraudulent vote calls, etc. He's the author of The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. And in the link, you'll see a link where you should go ahead and get that book. But also, he has a new book out called How Trump Stole 2020. Folks, we're going to talk counter narratives. We're going to talk reality. Greg Palast, welcome aboard Politics Done Right. How are you doing today, sir?
Glad to be with you again.
Absolutely, sir. Hey, look, before we got live, I had to ask you, am I really understanding what you're saying, Greg? Is that really a counter narrative you're pushing? Talk to me about mail-in voting, sir.
Okay. Well, in fact, I'm going to channel Professor Barbara Arnwine.
Okay.
The greatest voting rights lawyer in America from Columbia University, Jesse Jackson's counsel. And I'll just quote her. Mail-in balloting is a disaster for the African-American community. And I'm going to tell you why, okay? Just because Agent Orange says that mail-in voting will hurt Republicans doesn't mean it's true. Because believe it or not, I know it's going to be a shock, but our president does not always get his facts right. But what happens is we go crazy. If he says no mail-in voting, we say everyone has to go to mail-in voting. Well, I'm not necessarily against mail-in voting. Actually, I am against mail-in voting because, are you ready for this? 22% of all mail-in ballots never get counted. Let me repeat that. 22%, that's from the MIT Caltech careful study of mail-in balloting. It is a nightmare, especially for young people and for voters of color. It is, now dig this.
I want you to correct that. I mean, not collaborate, but tell me why. Why is it that 20% of them aren't counted?
Well, here's the biggest one. You can't mail in your ballot if they don't mail it to you in the first place.
Okay.
And so what happens is, African Americans, low-income people, young people move. Students move dorm room to dorm room. Renters and low-income people move from apartment to apartment in their neighborhood. Now, if you do that, you don't have to re-register. But if you don't, you're not going to get your ballot because it's going to go to the other address. Okay? Or they'll say, we try to send something to your other address and you will be purged. Now, here's the thing. In my book, How Trump Stole 2020, I bring out that 16.9 million people have been purged, voters have been purged from the voter rolls in the last 2 years. That's not a Greg Palast, that's not from under my hat. It is from the United States Elections Commission official figures, just short of 17 million people removed. If you're on that list of those people been purged, and those lists are about 2-to-1 Democratic, you're never going to get your ballot. You can ask one, you ain't going to get one.
Because you're registered.
So what's happening is we've had this massive attack on the African American vote, on Asian American, Latinx voters, young people. It started in my book. In fact, the first chapter of my book is called The End, because Donald Trump was elected in November 2018, 2 years before we cast any ballots, because in Georgia, they removed 340,134 voters that they said had moved out of Georgia, and they had gone nowhere, except their crime was voting while black, including, by the way, Christine Jordan. Christine Jordan, when I met up with her at the Atlanta polling station where they threw her out on her keister, is 92 years old. She is the cousin of Martin Luther King, who used to come over to her house after delivering sermons at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. And she was thrown out of the polling station because they said she wasn't there on the books anymore. Supposedly she'd moved. Well, she's been in that same house for 50 years. It's just that she started having her mail opened up by her niece because, again, she was 92, now she's 94. And she lost her vote with another 1/3 people. That's how Stacey Abrams lost the governorship of Georgia to Brian, the guy who actually removed people. He's the Purging General of Georgia. But that system is being run in Ohio, in Michigan. They're trying to push it, remove 250,000 voters in Wisconsin, which Trump won by only 22,000 votes. They're trying to remove 10 times that many number of black voters, mainly in Milwaukee, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Arizona.
And these are things you all document in your book, How Trump Stole 2020, right?
Yes. And what happens is you mail in. Okay, so if you're on the purge list, you're not going to get a ballot. If you're on what they call the mover list, you're not going to get a ballot. In 2016, how did Ohio go from Barack Obama in 8 and 12, and suddenly it's in the pocket of Donald Trump in 16? The answer is that 1,039,000 absentee ballots requests were never fulfilled. The Republican Secretary of State refused to send out over 1 million ballots of voters he called inactive, people he said didn't miss 2 federal elections. Well, the federal law says you can't remove people for not voting, and the list is terribly inaccurate anyway. But anyway, it was 2-1 Democrats, overwhelmingly young people who are the big target at this moment. So look, we may have to vote by mail-in ballot or we die. So I'm not saying don't vote by mail-in. I'm saying we better fix this system or Trump's good as reelected.
Now, I loved what you said. I think we've spoken before. You stated that because I complained about why is it that Democrats don't really see what's going on with voting. That I mean, if you're going bad at the voting booth, then how can you ever really expect to win? And you said, I think you're working with Stacey Abrams right now, or you've worked with her. And one of the things that you said, she's one of the first politicians that you see had not just accepted losing, but stated, I won had it not been for the voter rolls.
That's right. Well, Stacey Abrams has hired my expert team. She has said she's the first Democratic politician I've ever heard say, I won. I would be governor of Georgia, but I won't be inaugurated because they use Jim Crow tactics to stop my voters from voting. And she particularly cited my team's findings and hired my team, in fact, to explain why 340,134 voters we know exactly, were wrongly removed from the voter rolls. And this system's going all over the country. The thing is, I want to tell you, in case you don't know it, Stacey Abrams is not white. It makes a big difference. What I've found is that, yeah, you've had, I'm working, as I mentioned, Barbara Arwine, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and others. The problem is that the Congressional White Caucus is not responding to the plea to protect the vote. And if we go to mail-in voting, we better do a lot to protect that vote. And, there's some good new bills out there from Senator Wyden of Oregon, Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris. Okay, so like, for example, Senator Kamala Harris's bill is a good idea, which will protect mail-in voting, but it includes, she's emphasizing drive-up voting, which is a very California thing. Like, you think everyone in California, we all have cars here. Right. But if you're talking Detroit and you're talking Milwaukee and you're talking Charlotte and you're talking, Cleveland.
Where's mass transit? It's not really places where people have a lot of cars like California or Texas.
So for example, Ohio, first of all, there should be laws against, and we have to go on legal attack against not mailing people their mail-in ballots. Second, mail-in ballots should be forwarded. If you move, because you don't have to re-register if you're in the same neighborhood, and millions and millions and millions of young people, especially, and low-income people move every year, or move every couple of years, and they're going to lose their ballot. As Senator Wyden said, why can't we just download the ballot? Now, you can only submit one. You have to
shoot.
Why? What is this game? Plus, we now have the technology. We can mail you electronically a ballot that's personalized to you. Or why can't you ask for a ballot online? Very few states allow you to simply ask for your ballot online. You have to respond to a postcard that you may never get.
Greg, I was, one of the things after you started to talk about why mail-in ballots not implemented appropriately could be a clear and present danger to voting. I wanted to say, do you have a list of solutions that we need to follow to ensure that if we had to go to mail-in voting, that this will work? I mean, you just started to enumerate them there, and I'd like to have that list of what we need to tell our activists. These are the things that you need to propose both in your local jurisdictions and nationally if you believe mail-in vote is where we're going to.
Okay, let me give you the policy, the policy fixes that we have to have. Number one, simple, postage prepaid envelopes. We lose over 100,000 ballots to postage due. Like in Ohio, they have one little square where you're supposed to stick a stamp. Well, if you don't put 2 stamps on, your vote ain't going to get counted. Most ballots require 2 or 3 stamps. They're big. So don't forget to put on your postage, but we should have it. About half the states have postage paid. That's number one. Number two, you shouldn't have to answer a postcard to get your mail-in ballot. In California, I can go online and ask for a mail-in ballot. In fact, California has a system that we should all adopt, which is, we call it mail opt-out. In California, you get a ballot in the mail unless you specifically ask to go into the precinct. So we reverse the process. In most states, you have to ask for a mail-in ballot. California reverses it. You get a mail-in ballot unless you go online and say, no, I really want to take it into the polling station. That's really, really important in this general election. People should not have to hunt down and figure out how to get that mail-in ballot and look for it in their mailbox, and it may not get there. The post office has been horrible and about dropping off the request for mail-in ballots, and then the mail-in ballots themselves in the inner city. We lose up to 20% of those ballots. Never even get to the voter, Egberto. Never get to the voter. So how do you mail it back?
Right, exactly right. So, Greg, this is counterintuitive or a counter argument, because I think if you listen to and let me ask you something. Do you think you said, well, Trump doesn't know, or a lot of things that Trump says isn't right? Do you think just like he suckered, in my opinion, the Democrats into giving him Biden, that he's probably suckering them into this voting thing, mail-in voting as well?
Well, whether he's suckering them or he's just, the usual thing, like he's just making it up as he goes, I don't know. But we have to be very, very careful. Just because Trump says it doesn't mean it's true. So be very, very careful when he says Republicans will get wiped out if there is voting by mail. But I will say he's kind of sly. He seems like not the smartest knife and not the sharpest knife. But be very careful. He says if the Democratic proposals for mail-in balloting go through, Republicans.
Oh, right.
So be very careful. It doesn't say mail-in balloting. See, because here's the thing. Mail-in balloting, as it's currently constituted, are you ready for this, Egberto? In Wisconsin, which is the ultimate swing state this year, Wisconsin, you have to have a witness sign your ballot. And we're talking right now in Wisconsin, in the last election, who said, it went off okay. 140,000 ballots were rejected. 140,000.
In Wisconsin alone?
In Wisconsin alone, 140,000 ballots were rejected last week. Why? Because, and it's all kinds of reasons, but the big one was mail-in ballots without a witness signature. Now you got a witness signature in a lockdown, and 3 states require that you have your mail-in ballot notarized.
Notarized?
Notarized. Okay, so you can see the disaster that happens, especially among students and others who, like young people don't even deal with the U.S. Post Office. They don't know what a stamp is, and they've got to look for their mail. I know that my kids in college they check their mailbox about once a year at their on their campus. They have a mailbox.
Right.
Uses mail, and so seriously, we laugh about it, but young people have really been shafted on the mail-in ballot, the absentee ballot problem.
Okay, Greg, tell me a little bit about your book. When people get your book, what are they going to do? What are they going to find? What are they going to
Okay,
learn?
so if you go to get more information, obviously at gregpalast.com, but my book, How Trump Stole 2020. Now, he's already stolen the ballots. They've
Hmm.
already eliminated 17 million people. They've already got the rules in place to wipe you out and prevent you from getting your mail-in ballot or prevent you from voting. So we can steal it back, though. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just telling you what's happened. So they've stolen so Trump and his cronies have stolen 2020. Now you can kind of take it back. You can say, stop thief. And by the way, Egberto, it's not whether I'm for or against Donald Trump. Vote for who you want. You want Agent Orange as your president? You want some, bloviating bigot as your commander in chief? That's your choice, America. Don't, we're a democracy. But you shouldn't have to, the person in the White House should be the one that's elected by the people. And we've got to stop this. We have very sophisticated new Jim Crow tactics being used and some old things. But this new system taken out in Georgia of purging voters en masse, of blocking voters who mail in their votes and not sending you your ballot. I go through all this. And by the way, I hate to say it, I had to go through some of the nasty stuff that the Democratic Party pulled off. I have a chapter called California Reman about how in this past election, Bernie Sanders was shafted out of 553,000 votes.
I read your article about that a few weeks ago. Yeah.
So it's like, unfortunately, Democrats have their hands a little dirty. It's okay that I don't have gloves. I'm in my house. But maybe I need gloves for my house. But their hands are a little dirty. They're dealing with elections without gloves or masks, so to speak. So we've got a problem. We have to protect our own vote. And by the way, everyone listening, please check your own registration right now. Go to vote.org or see
Rock
if
the
state
vote as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and Rock the Vote. Any of these places will tell you, or you go to your county clerk's website, see if you're registered. Say, I've been voting the same place 30 years. Yeah, ask Christine Ford, Martin Luther King's cousin, same polling station, 50 years. I was there when they threw her out. So how Trump stole 2020. By the way, it includes, very, very important, it includes a comic book, 48-page comic book by the wonderful and courageous investigative comic artist, Ted Rall. And why do we do this? Why do we make a short book that has a lot of humor about a really, frankly, tragic subject, stealing your vote and the new Jim Crow voting systems that they have? While I use a lot of humor, you're going to get a lot of information on exactly how they have been taking votes state by state and how we can protect our votes and kind of take back our democracy. So it's not an accomplished deal if we do something about it.
So what's next? I know you're kind of locked up in your house right now. What's next for Greg Palast? What's the next great big investigative report after?
Well, the book, by the way, you can order it now from the usual suspects, but it won't come out till June 2nd. But it will tell you. See, I went to Wisconsin just before the lockdown, and remember, this is the swing state of swing states. And you'll see so I'm going to be making the film for The Guardian and others about the theft of Wisconsin, and then we're going to go state to state as we have a film from Ohio and North Carolina and other swing states, Georgia, which should be a swing state because it's now a minority majority state. So I'm going to be digging into state by state, and luckily I filmed so much of this and did so much of the investigation before the lockdown.
You have a lot of footage.
Out stories.
Now, are you going to release this as one long movie, or are you going to release it in sections the way The Guardian does it sometimes?
Two pieces. There'll be we're going to put out report after report. As you know, I work with a lot of outlets and love to work with you. We're going to get it out there piece by we'll do each state, Wisconsin, Ohio, and others, to illustrate Michigan, to illustrate each way that they jack with the vote. And then ultimately there will be a longer film. One of the problems is, frankly, we got to go ahead from Netflix, and of course everyone's shut down.
Yeah, that is amazing. But you're doing, Greg, let me tell you, you're doing great work. I follow you. I link to gregpalast.com all the time. And folks, all of you that are listening here, you should be linking to gregpalast.com. And one of the reasons why is in our mainstream media, we don't get the detailed coverage of what ails the nations. We get all the frills, we get all the things that make you happy. There's a whole lot of stuff happening right now. Greg Palast, give me a closer.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Look, I'm going to tell you, I wrote How Trump Stole 2020. Don't despair. You can steal it back. You can protect your vote, your democracy. But you don't know, you can't stop the thief until you catch him in the act. So get How Trump Stole 2020. See you at gregpalast.com.
Greg Palast, investigative reporter and author of many books, including How Trump Stole 2020. It's been my pleasure to have you on Politics Done Right. And you know, there's an open door here, man. You come all the time because we need your info, my brother.
Well, thank you very much for kind of getting me around the electronic Berlin Wall of the mainstream press here.
Absolutely.
I'm mainstream in the rest of the world, but in my own nation, it's kind of hard to tell people your democracy ain't exactly as you sell it to the rest of this planet.
Thank you so kindly, Greg.
You're very welcome. Great work. Thank you. Bye.